So wait till everyone comes in. Welcome, everyone. It's kind of always a bit strange because we can't see you as the numbers go up.
It'd be fun if people typed in where they're from.
Yeah, you're right, Peg. Yeah, absolutely. Type in where you're from if you fancy it. And at least we know that there's some people there, not just numbers going up.
That'd be great.
And we have one special member of the audience who is meant to be in the panel. So let me just see if I can find Mariella.
You can upgrade her.
I'm going to try and upgrade her. Yeah.
Wow.
Greece, Uruguay, Louisiana, UK, Australia, Cleveland, Ohio, Germany, Sweden, Ukraine, New Jersey, Finland, Michigan, Dubai, Netherlands, Scotland, Richmond, Virginia, England, Spain, London, Brazil.
No, Montana.
Your neighbor, Peg. Portugal, Isa's friend, student somewhere. Wyoming, wow.
No.
Hi, Susan.
There you go.
Hi, Susan.
That's one of yours, Peg.
Italy, Philippines, wow. Russia. We have everyone. Canada. Singapore, wow. Amsterdam. We have the whole world here. This is amazing.
And meanwhile, we can't find Mariella. Is Mariella there? Would you make yourself present if you are? Otherwise, we shall make a start in a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
What time is it in Perth? When
I know, I was thinking that Perth and Singapore is going to be really late.
Well, that'd be good.
10 p.m., 11 p.m.
That'd be worth staying up for. Yeah.
Women's issues always are.
Right. And we've got a few men, which is,
Yeah, good.
nice.
I tried to rope some men into coming.
Did you? Did you get them?
Yeah. I don't know. Jeff McKenzie was on the fence. He was like,
He's on the why? Why was he on the fence? Jeff?
He said, is Adam alone with all those ladies? I said, yeah, except for you, you're coming, right? And he said, I don't know, it's 7 a.m. on the West Coast. I'm not sure I can get up in time for it. Okay, we got Mariella.
Okay.
Hi, sorry
Hello,
for the delay.
Hello.
Everybody.
Right. Well, let's make a start, I think. I mean, I know many people are going to watch this on repeat, but I wanted to welcome everyone that's here to this seminar on Women Ashtanga, hosted by Harmony and myself at Keen on Yoga. I suppose it comes from doing a lot of podcasts with quite a lot of women and having many, people on this panel and other women, Nia and Peg particularly, really spurred my interest, and Harmony actually, to think that there was a specific need for this conference to address women in Ashtanga yoga. And well, I'm a man, obviously, but I want to represent men in this because I think men are also part of going forward in this, So without further ado, I'd like to hand this over to Harmony to set the event in progress. Harmony.
Hello, welcome everyone. We're so happy you're here. We're grateful for your time and attention and energy today. And I just really like to welcome all of our panelists, all friends and family to me. I have a unique sort of history with each and every one of these ladies. So I'm just grateful they could all be here and join us. And I'm really excited to share with you and share in the experience of hearing them speak about their own experiences and they're sharing their own innate wisdom and everything that they have to offer on some of these topics. Maybe not everything, because we are in a very short period of time and we have a lot of big topics to cover. So we will share as much as we can on each of them. And we've already had so many amazing questions sent in. And if you have any other questions you'd like to us to answer. We will
Yeah.
try our best. You can write them in the chat.
I should be moderating the chat box. So yeah, write your questions down from the audience. And yeah, shall we make a start?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's start. Let's jump right in. So the first topic that we're going to address or kind of get into here is the importance of our cycles as women. I guess that's sort of one of the most significant differences in the practice of Ashtanga yoga as far as our ritual and rhythms and routines. And it's always sort of, I guess, put forth that we should take these 3 days off during our period, during menstruation. And that was always a question for me that I was curious about, especially first starting, like, why do we have to do this? And coming from a background where that was not part of my cultural understanding. I was very anti taking days off at the beginning and never would. And then as I kind of got more into the practice and started doing more advanced postures, I was like, well, maybe I'll give it a try. I started giving it a try, and it had a very beneficial effect in that I also got to rest, which was lovely. And I noticed personally that some of the bandhas that were needed for some of the deeper back bends and things that were being required in the practice I wasn't able to access them as much. So that was my personal experience with it. I've done both ways, and I've, practiced, on my period since then. And personally, I feel like it's really up to you, and you should experiment with yourself. But we have some definite experts here with their own opinions and ideas and experiences with taking rest, maybe not taking rest, and how it works for them, and why you might want to take rest or why you might not. So how about Nia? Do you want to jump in here? This is an area of specialty for you, I think. You've done a lot with this.
I would say it's an area of passion. I'm still learning. I think I probably really started this journey about coming up to 4 years ago, where I started really looking at my cycle beyond my yoga practice, but just tuning into what was happening throughout the month. And what I think with the cycle is when we tune into what transpires throughout the month as women, it gives us the opportunity to adjust the tempo of our practice. And I think that is such a huge learning, because we need to be able to adjust the tempo of our practice, whether it's at the time of menstruation, pregnancy, postpartum, different life stages, illnesses. That knowledge of and acceptance and knowing that it's okay to pull back on certain things at certain times. For me, this is what creates a sustainable practice. And I feel like cycle awareness is like the gateway into getting that understanding. For me personally, I do take the 3 days rest, and I recommend my students to take it as well. In terms, not so much of like you need to rest as in you physically don't have the capability, but more in terms of what's happening on a pranic level. So if we're thinking about what we're doing with a lot of our in our breathing system, we have bandhas just with breathing. And that's really a different direction of the prana to what we're wanting to cultivate during the time of menstruation, which is the apana and the downward flow. And this is where things like where we have to realize that we're practicing yoga, not a form of exercise. And so then a lot of, I've even had, a doctor, a medical doctor in my class saying, no, but it's absolutely fine to do exercise when you have your periods. And I'm saying, well, it's a little bit different in terms of what's happening in the energetic body. Just from my personal journey now, after 3 years of being quite, I would say, like really taking that rest. And I rest not just from the practice, I rest from everything. Those 3 days I call the winter period, where I just like draw in and hibernate. My husband knows that that's when he has to cook dinner. cancel social engagements, at least just for one day. And then it's absolutely fine for me to like get into bed and, do what you feel like you actually want to do during that time. And then what I've noticed, if I do that pullback, that real rest period, that hibernation, that winter, wow, spring is fantastic. I come out of that back on the mat, energized, full of potential, just that spring feeling. That's what I've observed within myself. But I've also observed a reduction in what would you say, some of what people would term the PMS symptoms in that autumn period in terms of pain, which, people who are experts in the cycle say actually pain, strong pain connected to your period is actually not a healthy period. So I don't have pain anymore. And I also have lovely bright red blood, which I think is wonderful. And the more you take that time to embrace the period and see it and as like, it's a blessing, it's a goddess. The goddess has come, your inner moon has come. So you've become interested in the color of the blood. And to me, like this is yoga, to have, to use your yoga practice to support your overall well-being. So it's been an interesting journey, and now I feel quite passionate, as you probably know, and that's why I ended up doing the podcast with Adam to talk to women about this, because in our tradition we do have this concept of ladies' holiday, which is a sweet euphemism, but we don't have to say ladies' holiday. We can say, when we have our period, when we bleed, that's what we do. But I feel like it was never completely explained properly. And so we'd often have that feeling, especially in my soul, like, oh, is this something against women or something like that? But I feel like it's not about limiting it. In fact, cycle awareness opens up an even greater methodology for understanding the self. So your cycle awareness combined with your yoga journey is, wow, as a woman, it's a really powerful thing. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. I'm inspired. Someone is asking, which 3 days are you supposed to rest? And maybe you could speak to that. Which days do you take off?
I do take the first 3 days, but sometimes I will return to the mat after 2 days if the blood is lighter, and I'll do a modified practice. So I will still sometimes practice if there is bleeding, if it's coming to the end, but I will do things that I'll leave out deep twisting. I won't jump back. I basically won't use any strong bandhas because I want to keep getting keeping the womb area open, basically, to facilitate it. But that's just my personal thing, and different students, obviously, different women bleed for a longer period of time. I think the key is get your own intelligence. Do a cycle awareness diary for at least 3 months, tracking each day from day one of your period, your energy levels, emotions, and track it for yourself.
That's great advice. Chandana, did you have something you'd like to add to this as well?
Yeah, so I live in India. For me, the most important thing was to normalize talking about periods. I'll give you a certain, like this happened in my own house. So my parents, they are in the east of this country. So they were visiting me and I had my tampons on the dining table. So my dad was like, why do you need so many medicines? What are you doing? I was like, that's not medicine. That's my tampon. And of course, my dad doesn't know what is a tampon. So I'm explaining him, and my mom sitting on the chair, she's like fidgeting, she's uncomfortable, she's giving me the big eye looks. And I told her, like, look at your husband, my dad. It's completely normal for him that he knows his wife had periods, his daughter has periods, daughter-in-law has periods, every woman has periods. It's normal. It's something that happens to every woman. So he's okay with it. But you, on the other hand, you're so uncomfortable. It was because what was fed in our mind. And I grew up with the similar belief. I grew up with thinking about period as a topic of embarrassment, like you're not supposed to talk about it. It is a big taboo. You're not supposed to touch the pickle bottle. It's going to go bad because you're not pure. You're not supposed to take part in the festivities because, again, you're not pure. You're not supposed to go inside the kitchen because you're not pure. So, and even like I live in Pune, which is known as the Oxford of the East. And even today, men and women in my age and also younger to me are still uncomfortable talking about periods. So for me, the first thing that I wanted to do was normalize talking about periods. So that way, the first thing I did was all the women who come to my shala, for their monthly fees, I tell them that you get 1 month plus 3 days because I insist on them taking the 3 days off. So that's a rule. And the second one is I don't make it like a separate group, like for women to talk about the periods. I talk it in the class. So maybe after a lead class, I will address things like oil bath. I'll address why we take first 3 days off, or why should we take the first 3 days off, and moon days, holidays. So these are the things. Now, how do I make them aware about the facts that the body is going through a different, like a lot of changes, and how to support your practice with that? I talk about myself. For example, if I'm showing them an Uttita Hasta Padangusht Asana and I'm in my PMS or on my day of my periods, I'm of course wobbly. The bandhas are gone, as Nia said, the bandhas are not there. And I'm wobbly and I say, my periods are coming. So they're like, okay, what's happening? So that if I fumble while I'm giving the lead comes and I'm like, yeah, drowsiness, periods are coming. And also, I not only tell them that, but also the fact that sometimes, period it's like an orchestra of hormones, okay? And every month there's going to be a different song. It's not the same song. So every month your body is going to react or behave differently. Every woman behaves differently. There might be physical changes like weight gain, internal changes like constipation, IBS, mood changes, emotional changes. So every woman have a different thing. So addressing that, and even for me, like my periods always plays a game with me. I'll get up in the morning, I know I'm going to have my periods, but it's not there. And once I finish my practice, my period comes. So I discussed that too. Like, okay, yesterday my period came, but I couldn't do my back bends, but I still did my practice. Or yesterday I did my full practice and my periods came. So I think I'm stronger. So it's different. It's not the same like it's that you have to take rest. It depends upon how your body is behaving. I think that is very important. Like you have to be aware and conscious about the changes in your body. And sometimes, yes, accept the fact that you need to take rest and stop your practice. And sometimes maybe you don't need to take rest and you can do your practice. But I do insist on the first 3 days off. And why not? We all need a break and we are lucky to get the extra 3 days. So I'm happy about that. And all my women are happy about that. So yeah, that's what I have to say about this.
I love that. And it's so interesting, like hearing like your experience growing up too, because that was always my impression in India is, well, maybe this is a very sort of patriarchal kind of view of women. Like, oh, well, you shouldn't go to the Brahmin's house when you're having your period. And even I was told that by, the Joyce family, if Harmony's menstruating, she can't even come to the house. And I was like, okay. So there is this sort of little bit of a conflict going on sometimes.
It is still there. I believe like in today's age, we are much more advanced. So I do my puja. I have a little temple in the house. My mom says, oh, Shiva is going to punish you. I was like, yeah, we got the periods because of Indra. So don't talk about Shiva. So I do that, but when I'm going to somebody's house, like the Ganpati festival just happened in Maharashtra, and a lot of people call me, and I was like, I'm in my period. Do you have a temple policy? And if there are a few people, they say yes, so I don't go there. And there are people like, nah, we don't have a temple policy. Please come. So it's that's what it said. Even like in a city like Pune, which is like the hub of education, it is still like there are people who are uncomfortable and there are people who are progressing. So yeah, it's a very like, yeah, we'll see where we go after this in India.
Yeah, it's
I
so
love-
interesting.
I
Yeah,
love
Kat? Yeah, Nia.
what Chandana was saying about that whole idea of just normalizing it. And I think also this idea of, yes, maybe you take rest, but also there are other yoga practices that can be done during this time. So restorative yoga, wonderful practices, which are just really, I think, essential for an Ashtangi to have part of their yoga toolkit. So I say to women, if you want to stay at home, do your restorative yoga, but you are also so welcome to come into the shala and let me show you a little sequence, and I'll get up the blocks and the bolsters and set them up. And I just love seeing that in the Mysore room. I love seeing, and then you might have a pregnant lady as well with set up in something restorative. And to me, that's the beauty of a Mysore room, right? That we're all there adapting the practice as needed, whether it's cycle, pregnancy, injury, whatever, that it's inclusive.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're making space for that in your room. Kathy, and then Helena.
All right. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me? Okay. So I started in 1976, and of course I heard right away that we don't practice. And I accepted that because I needed to go on the journey and find out for myself. And I came to recognize, because we honor the moon cycle in this practice. And I discovered over years it became much more present and powerful doing this practice during this time. And then at a certain point, I met other strong women who said, hey, I do my practice. So I remember trying 1 month because I had a very normal cycle. And I felt like I was swollen. I felt like my back was sore afterwards. And I realized I have no issue with taking these 3 days off. And the rest also was powerful. And the only thing I'd like to add to women is that if you just try, you need to give yourself an opportunity of maybe a year of not, this is my recommendation, to really see. And the downward flow of energy, even after 3 days, if you're trying to take hold again, but your body hasn't really turned around, I don't personally think it's that wise. And you can do other types of yoga, or do your simple practice without inversions and without bandhas. Just do it softly and mindfully. So I actually feel that it was a real blessing, and that it opened me up to recognize through direct experience things that I would never have realized. So I wanted to just add that. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad you shared, because two influential teachers for me when I first started, who I believe are friends of yours, Nancy Gilgoff and Lucy Matarella, and they both have very different views on menstruation. Nancy's like, you should take 7 days off or your entire period. And then Lucy was like, my periods are always very light. I practiced the whole time. It never affected me. And so it was really interesting to hear, from women that were very senior to me as a practitioner, these two very different viewpoints. And it is wonderful also to hear yours, that like you experimented with it, and your recommendation to try it for a year and see the difference, like give it some time and see what happens and how you feel. And it's so important, I think, that we really like tune into what's right for us.
Right.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Elena.
Hi, everyone. I'm a bit nervous, but I'm going to try to give my 5 cents here. First, related to what Chandana said, I like to recommend an amazing documentary available on Netflix called Period End of Sentence. And it's about a guy from a town in India, in south of India, Coimbatore, that he opened a pad machine, and he was trying to normalize the period for the Indian ladies and for the men, and just to open the conversation, and take this out from this big taboo. So it's amazing. It's really beautiful, and it talks a lot about what you've said and all this feeling of being unable to talk about. In shamanism, when women they get the menstruation, they are believed to be the most powerful moment of their lives. So they step away from society and they go to the moon tent, where they do their prayers, they connect to the higher spheres, to the higher spirits, they receive. That's when the inspiration comes, and they can, like a prophet, they can offer the knowledge to the society. So they are believed to be the most powerful and the most, like witches, but witches like those who are really connected to the spirits, to the divine. And shamanism, as we know, is the ancient religions and cultures of the earth. So after all this male chauvinism has arrived and we are in this massive society and everything, those are converted as something dirty or something that is not that is on the way of your life, and it's not something desirable. So in my personal experience, when I started to honor my menstruation, to look into my blood, to offer my blood to the soil. So when I menstruate, I use the silicone cup, I give to the plants. You begin, like, you change completely. I changed completely the way that I relate to my own menstruation, to my blood, to my femininity. And I am really glad that we opened our conference with this topic, because for me, this is the main crucial thing and difference between being a woman and being a man. We believe that the progress is something linear, right? That we just go in one direction and it's always like an upward curve. But the reality, it's a pulsation. We expand and we contract, we go forward, we go backwards. And this is what the hormones, this orchestra is about. It's not a linear thing, but it's an organic, and sometimes your menstruation is stronger, sometimes it's lighter, sometimes we feel really tired before menstruation and we feel like we're not really able to do anything. And sometimes we feel completely energized, and it's all going to reflect what this last month was about, right? So what we lived, how we dealt with our emotions, the traumas that we've eventually had, we will express in this next period when your body is like digesting everything and releasing everything. So it's like a purification that we women have the blessing to have every month. But I believe that men as well, they have their hormonal orchestras as well, and they have their own cycles, but it's not something so visible and so evident as us women. So they don't allow them to show this fragility, like they want to be the full on, this 100% in every practice.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, I think they do. I mean, I think we really do, but we don't have a definite block. And yeah, I've often thought that men should take some time off, exactly as women, like this isn't, this is across the board. I want to ask just a quick question. It might seem silly. What do we call this? I mean, the ladies' holiday thing always sounded a bit of a euphemism, as if we couldn't talk about periods, but maybe to say, are you having a period is, crass, I don't know. It could be a poll really, but, is that a relevant thing for men teachers to say? That's my first question. And my second question, because we have to wrap this up now because we've got so much to cover. My second question is, what should I do if I've got a student, and I've had many of these women who are very, very strong, powerful, and I can see that they're coming every day. They're not taking time off. I know they're not taking time off, but you don't want to say you have to take time off as well, because, well, it's not for me to dictate how a woman uses her body. So what to do then? So I suppose one, euphemism, like what do we call it? And then secondly, what do we do as a male teacher if we see women practicing over their periods, and we certainly don't want to go in there and say, well, you have to take the time off, or, you know, well, yeah. Anyway, that's my little 2 cents.
Okay, Corey, and then Laura.
So in answer to your first question, Adam, I'd quite like to ask someone where they are on their cycle, because first of all, it's introducing the idea that there is a cycle and you could chart it, and different days bring about different times. We've talked a lot about menstruation. We haven't talked about ovulation. Often around ovulation, a woman might need a day, you know, and I often have students who'll have back pain around ovulation and then be very mobile before they bleed. So when women know their cycle, then they can start to, oh, it's that back pain again, you know, and I'll say, so where are you? Oh, I'm on day 14 or day 12. Okay, so I'm ovulating, and it's synced with that. Nia beautifully talked about the seasons, and there's this great book, which I would really recommend. And Adam, you could recommend it to your powerhouse women who don't want to stop when they bleed. It's called Wild Power, and it shows the cycle in the seasons. And Helena talks a lot about the wisdom of before a bleed. And my experience of that, and I think, you know, I don't have that amazing shamanic culture that you have, Helena, and it sounds beautiful. But, you know, I think most of us notice that we're very sensitive around the period, before the period. It's like our emotions are much closer to the surface. And often we'll be like, oh, I'm just premenstrual, it's fine. You know, that's why I'm getting so upset. But maybe there's something in that. Maybe that's, you know, there's some inquiry that when you come to the tougher part of your cycle, where you're more resilient and you're not so sensitive, you know, you can call in what you might have been, your body might have been, a part of you might have been trying to tell you back at that earlier time. So, and then on the last note, I think it's also important in terms of radical inclusivity, which is very important to me, to remember that trans men may also have a cycle. So I'll leave that for you to think about. And in terms of men, I had a friend, and he would always have a couple of days where he would be having his ladies' holiday, and he'd be doing a real gentle practice. So yeah, absolutely with the male cycle.
And Ayurvedic point of view, the menstruation, it's a way of clean our body, and it's also a result of our plasma and our blood. So a good blood, it's a result that all your tissues, the 7 tissues, has been well nourished. So, and the last tissue is the reproduction tissue. So it's important to see the quality of our blood, to see how our tissues are getting nourished. And also the cycle, the menstruation cycle, we have the period, that is the vata predominant. So that's why it's very important to rest and have a very calm practice like meditation or japa. And also the routine shouldn't be very fast with a lot of things to do. It's nice to take a break. So then you have energy for the next step, that it's kapha, when the period stops. Kapha is going to be important to build the endometrium again. So we need a good kapha at that time to have a good period, to have a good menstruation for the next cycle. So after kapha, we have the ovulation time, that it's pitta, that it's the spark of life. So it's a good time to get pregnant. So that's why we have so much fiery on that ovulation time. So to see that during ovulation, we have more tendency of fiery, of inflammation, we have to, it's a relation of the higher fire we have at this time. So that's our cycle. That's why it's important to rest during Vata time. If we don't rest, we deplete all our tissues, especially the last tissue. And so that's the way Ayurveda see, and we get also integrated with the cycle of the nature. So it's very important to stop. I recommend my students to stop during the ovulation if they feel pain. I also ask to reduce a little bit the practice. Don't put too much fire, because it's the fire moment of our cycle. So if you have a really strong practice and you feel uncomfortable with all that strength, I recommend to slow down a bit, do some pranayamas to refresh, because everybody is totally different. So we can see that during these 3 different cycles we have.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting from an Ayurvedic perspective, and it really lines up with like what Nia said and what Kathy was saying, and Elena and Corey and everyone. It's really interesting from that Ayurvedic point of view. Just before, I think we'll move on to menopause next, because there's so much questions about what happens when the cycle stops. But Maria, maybe you wanted to say a little something on this. And also there's quite a few questions about how bandhas might affect menstruation. If it does, can it bring menstruation on? Can it stop menstruation altogether? So maybe if anybody has something that they'd like to share about that. Maria?
Unmute yourself, Maria.
Sorry about that. I want to get back to Adam and your question about having, powerhouses practicing in your shala, and, how to get women not practicing if that's what you want. I think it's very, very hard to tell anyone what to do and not to do, just from a point of view as like being the teacher, unless it's kind of part of a tradition. For me, it was always very important to be part of the tradition of Ashtanga yoga, and in that tradition, we didn't practice during the 3 first days. And I wanted to respect that, because I wanted to do the Ashtanga yoga the right way, in the traditional way, when I was very young as a practitioner. But of course, I sneaked in a few times, because I didn't want to lose my practice if it was a moon day coming up, or maybe I was going to go home. But I felt the difference when I took my 3 days off. But I do think it's important to give the students the information about the tradition of Ashtanga yoga and why it's important on so many levels, as many of you have talked about. And since it's part of our tradition, I think that's, for me, has always been very important.
Yeah, interesting.
And I can actually continue, if I can, about the menopause thing.
Sure, let's talk about it.
Do we go into that topic now?
Go for it, please. What happens when it all ends?
Yeah, what happened when it all ends? Yoo-hoo! No, it's a bit sad, actually. It's something to kind of, I would have loved to celebrate when I got my period, but it wasn't in my culture, in my family's culture. But I kind of did a little bit of ceremony when I was, I realizing I'm losing it, because it was a loss. So in the beginning, when I didn't have my period anymore, I always do still, I take days off during full moon. So I honor my cycle during the full moon to have these days off. If I practice 5-6 days a week, then I always do that. Nowadays, I don't practice so many days a week, actually. So I practice many days a week, but not 6 anymore. But if I'm on like a go like that, then I always take 3 days around full moon and kind of honor my female and femininity and that cycle that I'm still part of, but in another way. That's how I do it with the menopause, with the period.
I like that. And I also remember in like our Ashtanga tradition culture, women who would lose their periods and being advised from Patabi Joyce to they should still take their period days off, even if they're not menstruating, even if they've lost their period for whatever reason, that you should still rest 3 days and honor that time.
Yes.
You heard that also, Maria?
Yeah, he told me that. I mean, when I was with him, I still I had my period all those years, but I heard that when he talked about it, and sometimes we asked the question, and that's what he said in conference. So I remember that, and I took that with me. So I honor my femininity with a little bit of a celebration during moon. So honor, my cycle. Yeah.
Beautiful. Peg, you've done lots of interviews and talking and writing about this. Please share with us.
I mean, I was afraid that I was going to become the poster child for menopause for a while there. But I was one of those people with cycling that I didn't take any time. I was that powerhouse. I ignored, I was kind of brought up with this idea, you will do anything a man can do, right? I was almost like, there was some shame attached. Like if I had to take days off because a man didn't have to. And so I really, really pushed myself. And when I didn't even know what perimenopause was. I didn't stop, practicing until I was bleeding so heavily that it was just impossible to come to my mat. I look at people and I'm so glad to see younger faces, because I feel like you understand that. Like that was something I lost. I didn't have that, but I feel like younger women really get that and they really understand the importance of cycles. I didn't. So then when I hit perimenopause, I was like, well, crap, now I can't practice. There would be days I really couldn't. And then I hit a wall and it happened really, really quick. Who knows if if one led to the other, but menopause was like a big fat wall. As my acupuncturist said, it was like I was in a speeding car and it just ran out of gas, And stress, of course, just intensifies menopausal symptoms. And so, I was probably perimenopausal because that can last as long as 10 years, I was probably in it for a while and ignored it, just freaking ignored it. So I'm not here to tell you, I'm telling you, I did it all wrong. But the wonderful thing is that life teaches you amazing lessons and opens you up. And then I just had no choice. And I discovered a much different side of me. That was when I learned, oh, I don't have to always do jump backs. Oh, wait, I don't have to, I can actually group postures, I can take days off, I can rest. It was like, I know this is ridiculous because if you're in tune with your instincts, you would have learned this a long time ago. I was like, for the first time, listening to myself, feeling when I was tired, resting. And I don't know, I don't think I was quite as, I don't think I'm a terribly warm and fuzzy person anyway, but I think menopause really opened me up to a softer side where I didn't really see it as a weakness anymore. It was this beautiful part of me that I got to explore that I never did before, that I didn't feel was allowed. I thought I had to keep up. I thought I had to be like the men, and I was practicing like a man. To practice like a woman is beautiful. And it wasn't until menopause that it opened me up to that. So I'm just saying, I'm just bridging the menstruation, the cycle to menopause. And I am post now, and I can tell you there is life after menopause and it's wonderful. And it was a different experience for me. And I'm just really happy to see younger faces and people who are older than I am. You seem to have learned something that, I don't know, I'm in my 50s, that I missed or didn't get, but learned from, and grew from. So that's it.
Love that. Thank you so much for bringing that up, that perimenopause can last 10 years. And it's crazy. It's like everything that we've been talking about with menstruation and periods and hormones and cycles. It's sort of like your cycle gets thrown out the window, and all of a sudden it's like really all over the place, and your sleep's affected, and the hot flashes and the night sweats and the headaches and you're getting all this. You don't know when your period's coming. Maybe it's going to be 7 days, maybe it's going to be 2 days. It gets quite confusing leading up to menopause, which is when you don't have your period for over a year. So it's so wonderful to hear all of these different points of views, and emotional too. It's like an emotional sort of, you're going through a lot of interesting transitions. So Kathy, please share with us.
It is so wonderful to hear all these beautiful, intelligent, deep women share. I don't know most of you, so it's actually really, really meaningful. I just want to say that we all have our own way that we have been with this practice. And I will tell you this, from honoring and taking the 3 days off, I did go into perimenopause a little bit yin deficient, and I found out from a midwife about 4 herbs that I could take at the end of my cycle to build my estrogen back up. It was Dong Quai and yellow dock and licorice and asparagus root. Anyway, so I did that for some time, and that was actually helpful. And as time went on, I also worked with a chiropractor who, every time I saw him, he'd say, I don't know what's going on. You're shutting off your hormones. And he would turn them back on just by jiggling something in my side. And it went on for years like that. So at 52, my period just stopped, and my sleep became challenged in a way I never had for a minute. But I will say that through watching my diet, through, practicing and all, it wasn't horrible. So I'm just sharing my own experience of what this was. But after about 8 years, I started feeling deficient in a certain way, and I went to a doctor. And I am someone has been doing bioidentical hormones since then. And every year I get tested my blood, and it's been, and my acupuncturist said it's strengthening for me. But I want to tell you, at 73, I have a fabulous practice. And I honor what it is when it is, but it is not that terribly different. I did all the advanced, which I don't really do. Every now and then I try something. I don't really do advanced, but I do primary and second. And during this pandemic and different things, I also swim. And so sometimes I have 45-minute practices, and, I vary. Sometimes I mix things up. But after 40 something years of practice, I feel like I know my body well enough to do that. So I'm only saying, I know we're different. I know my understanding is many young women have more difficult cycles as the planet is warming and pesticides and challenges and stress. I recognize that it's not one way, and I'm not trying to say that, but I'm just saying that that and resting, as hard as it is, when you're dynamic, you want to stay dynamic, and it's really hard to surrender to rest. But if you don't do that, you burn out as time goes on. And then again, you're forced. So we're all different. So we get it when we get it, how we get it. And hopefully we all get it, that it serves us. So I just want to say that the way we pay attention, the way we honor ourselves is something that we learn. And this practice has taught me how to be present in my experience over and over and over and over again. So I love it. And I'm very grateful to all of you for sharing and for hearing what I have to say about it. So thank you.
That's wonderful and so powerful. Just learning to be present to what's arising for you is so powerful. Laura, you had something to share, maybe an Ayurvedic perspective.
When Peggy was speaking, I remember. So when we have we can look at our cycle and menstruation, we relate with I hope my English works. Has been a while I don't travel, so not very good. So we look to our reproductive tissues. And that in Sanskrit, which is much better to say, is Shukra Dhatu. And the Shukra Dhatu represents Venus. And Venus is love and beauty. So I think when we have the patience to look at our cycle and our blood, we relate with the beauty and the love of being a woman. So I remember that when I listened to Peg.
I love that. That's so wonderful. Does anyone else want to share? I know some of you must be experiencing some perimenopausal symptoms.
Obviously, I'm not. Well, actually, no, funny you should say that, but I mean, men also do go through a stage. Jung said it's 38 years old when men's body starts to change, and that definitely happened to me, and it was huge and tumultuous, and it was a very big deal in my life. And I think, men, and I do want to consistently say for women and for men out there that there is a male cycle. It's just hard to recognize it. It's just more hard to recognize it. But, something that struck me with Peg is that men should actually, rather than trying to measure up to men should just come down to being sensible. I was burning myself out, practicing 7 days a week, like my body was just done in, like I needed a rest, And, so I think instead of inspiring to men, don't do that. There's nothing to aspire. It's just craziness, Anyway, what I wanted to say is, does anyone have any ideas? I've had a few students saying they're getting very anxious. Obviously, there's sleep problems with perimenopause. Does anyone have anything to say about any asanas, any use of yoga to help with those symptoms? Because I understand they can be very strong and very disruptive.
Maria.
Yes, I can say something about that. When it comes to sleeping, I didn't go through much menopause. That was more psychological, was quite hard for me, but not physically that much. But it was to accept that time was over for me, that shift over to another phase of my life. But I still can have issues with sleeping. And then for me, and what I teach my students is pranayama. When it comes to asana, I wouldn't say that you can do restorative postures for calming down the whole system, that kind of practice. But the best for me is to do a calming ujjayi pranayama, nadi shodhana, no retention, brahmari, the bee, the black bee, to do this practices before going to sleep. That has been the best for me, and some restorative postures. And also I think it is important to go through menopause when these issues come, or these kind of changes come for us, both women and men, I would say, go through a change in 50s and 60s. And that what you say, Adam, it's not to push yourself, to really feel how, what do I need? How is my practice supporting my life? Not the other way around. I don't want to be choked by a hard physical asana practice. It needs to be a deeper meaning for me to go on the mat. It's a possibility for me to meet myself every day, to honor my body. And I follow the sequence. I do my sun salutation and standing postures. I do them almost 6 times a week, 5-6 times a day per week. Sorry, not a day, per week. And when I have done them, that's sometimes enough for me. I engage my bandha, I strengthen my legs, which is very, very important when we get older, to have strong legs. I work my standing postures really. I used not to like standing postures because we couldn't get that much more of them. So it wasn't really on my priority, but I love the standing postures. They ground me, they make me go inwards into my heart, to my breath. And from there on, I see where am I today? What's my practice today? Because if I would have, do what I did when I was younger, I don't think I would have practiced anymore. I think I would have kind of been choked and so much pressure from the practice. So I really try to feel every day, how can my practice support my life? where I am right now. And I'm over 60 now. I'm not 30 anymore. So it's a huge difference. But I still honor this practice because it has given me and gives me so much in my life. So I really heard you as well, Kathy. Really, that's, it's a beautiful practice, but we need to honor the body in the practice so the practice doesn't take over. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, Maria. That was actually a question that somebody had, was like, how do you, practice over time? And I think that's really the key that you've touched upon there, both, you and Kathy being present and honoring the body and using the practice in a way that nourishes your life rather than like trying to sacrifice yourself on the altar of the practice.
Yeah.
Kathy.
Let's see.
Kathy, unmute yourself.
Okay, I guess I was already unmuted. That was beautiful. And another thing that just through practicing over a long period of time, it becomes less the physical and more the samsara, releasing, opening. So it does take one into a deeper place, or it definitely took me into a deeper place. So as things have happened, just as life occurs, an injury, not from the practice, from lifting a heavy pot or whatever it is, then it has served me so well. And through menopause, to show up, just show up. You show up, you see where, if the energy is going to come in, you don't chase after it, you breathe, you find your engagement. These things, they make all the difference in the world, the showing up. And I agree with what Maria said. You just get there, you do your salutations and you're standing and you ground, and then you see. And to this day, this is what I do. And every time I get on my mat, I'm so grateful. And whether I had today, for certain reasons, I didn't have time for a full practice, I felt so nourished by what I did and my pranayama. And then I came down here and I know that it was fine. I don't feel like I copped out or I didn't do enough. But it's that listening, really listening and recognizing you can't chase after it. You can allow, you can see what's there, open to it. And every one of us has a different experience. I'm clear on that. I do think it helps I worked with a nutritionist. This was years, some years ago, 20 years ago. So I worked with a nutritionist for a while to see what she might see. She was kind of a wise woman who used pendulums and things, but she had the education also. And it was very helpful for me to see what actually gave me some warmth than what I needed at that time. So I do agree with what Peg said, that a lot of the younger women, I think you have access to a lot more than was available when I was younger, and Peg is still quite a bit younger than me, so I include you in the younger women to a good extent. But I'm just saying, so that's where we're listening, because if you're any of us trying to chase after something, we're going to lose. But I really do support resting in at the end of your practice and finding your way with your menstruation, so that as the years go on, the body is still, working to serve you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Mariela.
Hi, everybody. Love from India. I'm very happy to be here with you all. And I just want to add a little bit, and Kathy, what you said about allowing. It's so beautiful, because the female body blossoms with age, and we have been conditioned to think differently. But like Peg said, it's about blossoming into your full potential. And I actually feel like with the shaman wisdom, that when the woman stops bleeding, all the wisdom comes out. And the Shukracharya, like Laura said, it's like the Venus, the goddess that it's inside of all of us, and it's just waiting for us to allow her to come out. So since this practice was designed for teenage boys. What are we doing here? It's like adapting this amazing, beautiful practice to our female curves, to our cycles. And I want to speak a little bit about the opposite thing that is anorexia, because I had students with anorexia. I've seen in my Sushala students with anorexia. You know, you can see their bones, and I'm 100% sure they're not bleeding. And that's part of the epidemics of infertility as well, because we have an idea that this female body with curves has to be straight like a man's, zero fat, and we are judging our bodies and we are punishing ourselves with practice, instead of, like Maria said, of giving ourselves space to do Viparita Karani, legs up the wall, every day in the afternoon. If you're having a morning intense practice, in the afternoon you do Viparita Karani and you recover. And in your during your ladies' holidays, you do restorative postures, and then the body is going to blossom how the body needs to bloom, not how we are thinking we should look in the yoga clothes. And that's very important, because so much noise around how we should look as Ashtangis, instead of allowing the body to unfold in its wisdom. And that's why Ayurveda is so beautiful. You know, as we age, the Vata element starts getting more intense. So we need the oil. We need the oil bath every week. We need to like eat warm food, and so the Vata calms down so much anxiety and restlessness. And our practice, if you do your Ashtanga practice so fast and so powerful, then it actually can aggravate Vata. So as women, we need to be really careful, especially if we want to get pregnant. I'm sure is the next subject. Pregnancy. If you don't have fat in your body, you're not going to get pregnant ever, or you're going to lose the baby. So for the newer generations, if you're taking your asana practice as a way to comply with judgments about how you should look as an Ashtangi, there's a lot of noise there. And I'm sure you all agree, because we have all been there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariella. Maybe this can lead into a little bit of a discussion also about the anatomical differences and the differences between the male and female body, since you started to bring it up. And Peg, whatever you would like to add to the discussion, please do. And then we can move just briefly into some of this, like the difference of the feminine energy, or having a more feminine approach to the practice, or even anatomical differences where we hold weight in our body, and like actually having hips and thighs and a butt versus like tiny little skinny legs.
Who are you calling skinny legs?
Well, I think what I was going to say is, and it leads right into that, is I feel like, and especially for women, I think this is really particular, there are like two demons of practice, right? There is guilt and there's shame. And the guilt says it has to be either or. The guilt zaps the joy out of practice. It says it's correct, incorrect, right or wrong. And we have this just really narrow view of what practice is supposed to look like or be. And I mean, those tutorials where people are going or no, not this way, or a big circle with a line through it, drives me insane, because I'm sorry, I should not really be going off like this, but it does, because I'm like, really, I'm a pear shape. Like I already feel guilt. I already feel and that shame. And so I'll go to that one. So the guilt zaps the joy. The guilt makes us think that it's an either or, that it's no, or yes, this is right, you know? And then there's shame, which like, it means we're, instead of listening to our instincts, we listen to our thoughts. We listen to the judgments. So like guilt is like us internalizing these expectations, but the shame is like these internalized outside expectations or judgments. And Ashtanga yoga seems to be really quite chock full of it. I mean, we have this beautiful method, and so intelligent and everything. And then we create this really dogmatic, way. And I'm telling you, women are already, I feel like we're already conditioned for the guilt and the shame, whether we're talking about motherhood, practice, career, I don't care what the hell you're talking about. We're conditioned. We have guilt. We carry that. We need less of that. We don't need to be told no, 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 or, we already have that. So it's like this self-acceptance. And I think this would, if we could practice that kind of compassion and love for ourselves and really look at ourselves. I mean, when I realized, I started looking, I remember this, and I will just tell this very quickly and just turn it over to you. But I remember I was practicing, and it was in Dina's room. And I remember I was doing something, and she walked over to me and she said, let me ask you, you obviously were taught this, whatever I was doing. I won't even go into it. And I said, yeah. And she said, who taught you, a man or a woman? And I just sat there for a second, and I was like going, of course it was a man. And so I went to go answer her. Of course she was gone. She was just asking me the question to ask myself. And that really made me dive into my own practice and thought, why do I do it that way? Why am I practicing that way? Is that a smart way? Is top loading my shoulders all the time a smart thing to do? Like we want to do that Utkatasana lift. Is that really smart? Do we really need to put more tutorials of you putting your hands down and your hips coming like level to your shoulders? And I've got some childbearing hips here and I got smaller shoulders. Is that like, that's really pretty and all, but is that really functional? I mean, I had to go back and just ask myself, why am I practicing this way? What am I practicing? Is this smart for my body? Does this work for me? Does this make sense? Anyway, that's my 2 cents. I'll put myself on mute now.
Fantastic questions. I love it. Nia?
This is something I've been exploring. I think the whole time I've been practicing, thinking, but my body is like this, and their bodies are like that. And I'm working really hard to lift up and jump back, but I think the odds might be stacked against me. So I'm a little bit new to Instagram, but I actually posted me lifting up and jumping back, which has taken a long time to do what I can do. And I don't do it like how the Instagram, other tutorials look, but I'm kind of proud that at least I do the best that I can with what I've got. And that's, all that we can do. But I think having that understanding that there are anatomical differences, even down to like, we need to have fat on our bodies. We should not be trying to strip our bodies with fat. So when we do our Marichasana D, our knee is touching the floor. For some women, if you have fat around your bum, padding around your bum and your hips, your knee won't come and touch the floor. And that's absolutely fine. I've had, people feeling like it has to touch the floor, but the body is shaped in a different way. It's all going to look different for each person, and particularly taking into account a woman's body. The worst thing I think we could do is to think that we have to change our beautiful shapes to fit into a particular posture. That's it.
Thank you, Nia. Elena?
Yeah, when we think about the differences between the body of a man and a woman, there's so many things that are completely different because we were meant to different functions, right? While the woman was created and designed and shaped over the natural selection to give birth and to hold the child and to keep it there for 9 months. And so the man is supposed to hunt and be very light, so they store much less fat around the body. They have much stronger shoulders and they create much more muscular mass than us. We have more delicate skeletons. We tend to have a very different shape of the pelvis, as the pelvis are larger because there's a space to go down the baby, especially the head. And the bones are also lower. The hip bones, they are placed lower, then the shape of the man pelvis is different. Our lumbar back curve is more accentuated than in the men's. So when we look into the anatomical differences, there's so many, but then we expect women to do the same. And we keep this as a high standard, you know, as Mia was saying, like, this is how it should be. And this is how your goal is towards doing this way. And even between the gender woman, we can see so many differences in shape and bone shapes, you know. A female can look like this, a female can be like that, and the trochanter, everything. So I think it's a very important and crucial movement that we're doing to personalize, not personalize, but to look into practice to see the individual first. Yeah.
Chandra.
This is one thing that I've always told my students, be it a man or a woman, that when I teach them, it is what I'm teaching with my own practice, what I've done over the years. So that's my 100%. When they take those cues, they have to bring their own 50% because their body is different, be it a man or a woman, and make their own 100. So that is, I'm like acknowledging body differences, different anatomy, different weight, fat, everything. So even if I'm giving in my 100% and a student takes it, he or she has to get her own 50% to make their own 100%. So that is something that I keep telling all my students.
I love that. I'm going to put you on the spot, Anna, because we had a big conversation about masculine and feminine energy in the practice and what you've been exploring. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, and this is such a vast topic, of course, and for me, actually, it's not really about the gender, but more about the mindset, and it doesn't matter who are we talking about, a man or a woman. And to my opinion, it's kind of our current modern trouble that we are losing receptive approach, the approach of receptivity and deep listening to what is going on, to our own creative energy and how it wishes to unfold through our body and through our breath and through our mind and actions. And instead, we kind of choose some artificial objective, some idea of how it should be and how I want to be and how the world should be. And then we're kind of trying to impose this idea on this creative power, and it never works well. Because then we cut ourselves from this creative energy and close ourselves in a little box where we cling to this idea of how I should do or what I want to be, some like artificial ideal or feeling of me, which we somehow think about as idea of some like divine thing or even God, but actually it's not that. It's our ego projections and how and we chase these projections and trying to become something else. Yeah, not to be ourselves, but to become something else, to become something better, something more beautiful and something more interesting or whatever. And it's everywhere. It's in our Ashtanga practice. It's in our relationship. It's in our work. And so Ashtanga is a great method. And but of course it's it may be very different depending on how we approach it. And actually, my mentor and friend who helped me to reconnect with my own creative energy and to step back from this small box, he's a man, and it's wonderful. I mean, he was much more receptive than I was. And as far as I see, Adam is doing the same job for his students. So I think it's more about our general approach to life, and about coming back to this intuitive being and listening to the deep earthy energy inside of us and around us. And instead of trying to use our own resources, our own body and mind and speech and whatever we have, and of course the outer resources, Mother Earth and all that it gives to us, instead of using it all for our own egocentric ideas, we may just try to listen to it and to try to tune into this flow and see what we can do to support it. And it changes everything, of course. And I love the idea that the creative energy breathes through us, like consciousness breathes through us. And when I'm thinking about it, I'm not trying to use my own breath anymore as an instrument to become, as an instrument to make my Ashtanga practice better. I just give it space. And so my body may take different forms and shapes, and my asanas can look different from how they are drawn, you know, into this seriously, because like my breath moves this way, and I'm just trying to make space for it to happen, and that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I want to tap into that idea of the creative energy and the breath that you bring, and like that energy moving through us, and move that creative energy into another topic that we wanted to touch upon, which is pregnancy and becoming pregnant, channeling that creative energy. And I'm going to call upon beautiful Isa to tell us about her experience, which I think is so unique and original. And Mariella as well, you're on my hit list for up next.
Well, first of all, I feel very fortunate for this invitation. Thank you so much, Adam and Harmony, because it's always such a pleasure to listen to our collective wisdom together. This be a woman, what it means to be a woman. It's so beautiful with this Shakti power this afternoon, and I really feel blessed for that. And yeah, to me came in a very special way throughout decades. So I had my 3 children, 1 per decade. And for sure, it is very unique to be on my early years of practice, almost right after I started Ashtanga, I got pregnant of my first child that now is 17, almost 18. And I remember that, imagine for someone so young, young in sense of years of, I was 24 or 23 and then 24, I had him. And also young on the youngest years of practice, that you kind of get like, and with my profile, you want to do it all. You want to go for it, you know? And you have this moment of like, to honor the creation, the whole amazing process of getting pregnant. But for me, even though I had that profile, It was always very smooth. The fact also throughout menstruation, I was always honoring those days. For me, it makes really sense to honor. Also because I do love my personal practice, but I do love to teach also. And to have energy to teach in the morning and teach in the afternoon. And on top of that, function with all the family life, I really need to take those days to rest, at least from my personal practice, because the teaching goes on and I don't stop on that. So, but very, very special to have had these experiences throughout three children, one when I was 24, one when I was 36, and now recently, the last with 42. And what I felt most during pregnancy, all of them were very different. The adaptations that I had to give to my personal practice, the first pregnancy, definitely the first 3 months, not possible. Even a simple Adho Mukha, I was like, no, I don't want to be here. So I really honored that first trimester. And then I practiced the last 6 till the day I gave birth to my child. So, and I was very, so beautiful to discover that is not the shape of the asana, of course. And that's even, we women, the shape changes, but of course, what is interesting to observe, and it's a proof, it's the essence of the practice. The shape will always vary, of course, but the essence of the practice, and picking the breath topic, it is the core. It is the core. And of course, also picking I laughed a lot throughout the PEG sharing, because it's not about what the mind wants and the ego wants. No, for sure. The mind wants everything for yesterday. The ego wants everything perfect. And we have this judgmental, It is to keep on breathing. That is the life force. And while you're pregnant, it's so beautiful to really, really nurture yourself and then the being you are creating with the power of the breath, and to listen to that and allow the wisdom contained inside the breath of life, that it's nature breathing through you and teaching you. You have to become the listener. You have to be wise enough to just shut the other channels that want to pop up and want to say things, when the wisdom is there unfolding in the act of breathing. And while we are pregnant, it's amazing because it really shows you the way. Like in any other phase of any woman, that doesn't necessarily to have to cross that in her life, because we are men and women, creative beings. We don't have to become pregnant to feel that. It's just another very clear proof on how much nature is there supporting the miracle of life, and how intuitive we get throughout it's so clear to observe the differences the body has to cross through in shape. But that happens all the time, even if you're not pregnant. But it's very clear when you become pregnant, and you really have to honor the breath at all times, showing you the way and telling you what to do. So it was different for my 3 pregnancies, of course. The second one, I was full power the first trimester, and then she was very hyperactive inside me, and it knocked me out. And then it was the longest time I was not practicing throughout my life. And that was the biggest surrender, because then, and I think all of you have felt, the biggest detachment is from the practice itself. we get addicted in a good way, and it's a great addiction. It's so amazing. But the final detachment for us that dedicates our lives to this practice is actually to know how to also honor the wisdom of stopping it. And sometimes it comes in these forced ways. For me, it was very strong, you know. It's, wow, I really need to stop. And it was the longest season of my life. The last one, even though I was older, it was the one that I did more. And I guess I always, I think there's one thing that I want to say that it wasn't mentioned here. It is Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is sublime. Yoga Nidra, it is amazing how much can nurture, and it's related also with this topic I was saying. You need to be able to allow yourself to and to let that nurturing from Mother Earth, that is the mother that sustains us all, and to fall deeply asleep as a baby after that hour and a half or whatever it is, that it is like so similar to life. On the mat is symbolically representing life itself. All the movements of life, what we have to unfold. And of course, if before I pass the word to Mariela, I think it is important for me to share a bit how crazy it gets when they are born. And I remember on my 20s, I would get like, oh my God, I can't practice, you know. There was that, I was still young, and throughout the years, it's like whatever you can feed. And how I do it now, it's I practice very early. I have a short cycle of sleep. I sleep like 4 or 5 hours very deep, and then I'm on. And I have to practice at 2, sometimes 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and I get it done while they're sleeping, because throughout the day and then with my teaching schedule, no, not possible. So I prefer to just do it there, have a second sleep almost, and then have a nap in the afternoon. And that's how I can get it, and with the silence I need, and the focus, because during the day with 3, each one with its different needs, not possible. But I remember early in the days with my 20s, I would get mad, and I was like, what do I do now? What do I do now? And of course, with years and with time, I came to this acceptance that you do what you do, even if it's 5 minutes, it's done. It's done. And you need to make peace with that and not go with that square obsessiveness of the practice has to be like this or that. No, just breathing itself is the gift of the practice, that you become more aware of that. But I share the word now to Mariela, and any other doubt, just let me know.
Yes, thank you. Mariela, maybe you can also speak to how you came back to your practice too after each of your births, because you had so many experiences.
Well, yeah, I have to say, if any woman here is pregnant and is listening to this beautiful webinar, I would recommend you go to a teacher that is a woman who has had babies. That's my recommendation, because it's such a deep transformation that happens when the woman goes through the initiation of a birth. And you need to have someone that understands what you're going through in the body, but also in your psyche. And it's crucial that you have support because there's so many changes, especially in the first pregnancy. Oh my God, you feel like you're being possessed. And sometimes it's scary. You're losing everything, not only the asanas, you're losing your identity. And you're being born as your baby is being born, you're being born. And I have been born 7 times. So it's crazy, the transformation, and only because I really trust my body, this female body. I know the body knows what to do. The body knows how to create a life, and the body knows how to give birth. The body knows how to breastfeed and how to recover. And the practice is there as support, but the wisdom of the body is so amazing. And I'm so grateful to be a woman in this lifetime. And I do believe, like in the Gita says, that these babies choose us because they need mothers that have a spiritual practice. And so you get these incredible souls that they are coming to earth to help. And the more we get out of the way, the better. The more we let go of control and trust that we are being somehow chosen by these souls to come into earth, that's a blessing, but it's also so demanding. It demands something in you that knows how to surrender even before you know how to surrender. And I know those of you who are mothers understand me. We don't know what type of baby we're going to get. We don't know what type of birth we're going to get. It may turn into a total tragedy. It may turn into a death experience like it happened with me with my 6th baby. I had no idea. The baby may be cranky. The baby may be sick. So that's what life is. So motherhood, like, you know, that it's been called in our Lineage 7 series. That's really the culmination for those of us who I don't know how to say it, is I never thought I would be the mother of so many. Really, it was not in my plans. There was something beyond me that decided I needed to like do that service, because it's a service. It's a karma yoga. And I learned how to surrender. And motherhood is not easy, because one of you spoke about conditioning. Oh my God, like at least in the society that I was born in, Costa Rica, so much patriarchal crap around motherhood. So much bias about how the experience is supposed to look, how you're supposed to behave, how you should raise a kid, how the kid is your responsibility. And I do believe these creatures are so wise, and they already come to us complete. And we just do the basic thing of like nurturing them, feeding them, but they are already who they are. And each one of my kids is completely different. And each one of my kids is completely amazing. And I think adapting the practice to the present moment as it is, it's very important that we don't have a concept of how the pregnancy should be, of how the birth should be. One of you spoke about taking rest and listening to your body. The first 12 weeks are nothing, no asana. Please don't do asana in the first 12 weeks. Because the baby is just like trying to understand your body. And if you're doing this practice that is so intense and so full of like, you know, twists and things and jumps and back bends and like, you can miscarriage perfectly. If you want to keep the baby, don't do your asana. And anyway, everything is in God's hands, but at least the basic thing is to listen when something does not feel right. Even though you may have a teacher that is a woman that has been a mother, you should listen to your body first of all. And when something is off, something is off. Same thing when you're in the moment of the birth and you feel something is off, please speak out. Your voice is important. Sometimes there's a whole like system that wants to like put us in a box and tell us how to give birth, how to breastfeed, how to behave. And it's so intuitive, this process of motherhood. So listen to your wolf inside. It's like your woman that runs with the wolf knows how to give birth. And many women are choosing not to give birth, and that's also perfectly okay. There's nothing that says that you should be a mother to be an accomplished woman. And I really want to say that, because sometimes people think that if you are not a mother, then you're kind of incomplete, and that's not true at all. It's like each one of us has a different path, and each one of us has different experiences in each of the lifetimes. So the pressure to become pregnant also is something that needs to be relieved. Sometimes babies are not meant to come to us. Life is going to nourish us in different ways. And for those of us who are mothers, biological mothers, the experience is a experience of deep surrender of who you think you are. At least that's how it was for me. And to learn from each one of my gurus, that's how I call them. And I learn every day. And now that I am away from them, because 2 of them are in Germany and 5 of them are in Costa Rica, I really appreciate everything they have taught me. And I think all my asana practice and all my Ashtanga practice prepare me for the big task of being a conduit, for these lives to come through me. So I'm in deep gratitude. I do believe that each woman has a different path. So we should not put pressure on any woman to become a woman. It's something to become a mother, it's something so personal. And if you're there, if you're trying to get pregnant and you're not getting pregnant, just let go, just forget it. Just keep doing your practice and release any pressure. And if it's meant to happen, it will come. And that's the surrender of what this practice is there to teach us.
I think we can say that for men and women, that, it's said to be a householder's practice, and there is this thing of have children, and it is said, and if you're not, and a number of questions came in before the event as to what if we, it seems to be, expected to be have children. What for those people that don't have children, we felt to be less valid in the practice, or, so I think it's very important to reiterate that, it's okay not to have children as well. And, if you're not called to have children, I don't have children, we're no less valid as a practitioner of Ashtanga yoga. That's, a ridiculous thought. Well, not ridiculous that you're having it, but, it's, certainly shouldn't be the case. I think one more thing to add, I mean, I know we're running out of time. I really, really would like to put this point across is, as a man, I've had so many years of teaching where, someone comes in, they're just pregnant, and my heart sinks in a way. And I think, how do I teach them? What do I teach them? Someone's saying this, Maria's just said no practice at all for the first 12 weeks. I would just like to throw that out to the panel and anyone else for ideas as to how to progress when a student comes in and says they're pregnant, what to do.
We have lots of people who want to input on this one. I also want to input on this one just a little because I was definitely not a person who took the time off. I was in India practicing first series, second series, no problem. But I do think you have to really listen to your body. I think it's so important. And that's honestly what my advice always, if you're newly pregnant, pregnant for the first time, second time, third time, however many times, is really like, you have to do what feels right for you. And if, downward dog doesn't feel good, don't do downward dogs. If, back bends don't feel good, don't back bend. If back bends feel really good, okay, fine, but really listen and don't just follow the sequence. Don't just follow the series of postures, leave things out. Skip things, try them one day. If they don't feel good, leave them, try them another day. Maybe they feel better. Everything's changing so much. So I always really try to give all of the control to the student, to the woman, so that she can do what is right for her rather than follow like some book of I have to do this and I have to do that, which I feel goes all the way back to what Peg was saying, like more guilt, more shame. I'm not doing it right. I'm not following the rules. I'm not doing it correctly. And it's, you know, I feel like you have to listen. And if anything's come out of everything everyone said today, it's that deep listening and responding and having the confidence in yourself and your inner wisdom and your inner voice and that higher consciousness and that flow of energy. And it's just really beautiful to hear this in so many ways. So, Peg, you've had your hand up for a while.
3 things. 1, yeah, the way to teach a pregnant woman is to listen to her, because there is never a time a woman is more embodied than when she's pregnant. She's literally embodied. She knows, they just have to tell you, and you just have to listen, and just give them the encouragement to listen. That's number 1. Number 2, very practical thing. If anyone has ever had a C-section, the C-section scar is right around where the bundas are, and you would be amazed how numb that goes in scar tissue. A tip somebody gave me one time was massaging that area with castor oil. I do it in the bathtub, in the shower. It was amazing. It awakened that area. It had been, I didn't even realize it had gone numb. I've had 2 C-sections. So that was just something very practical along with childbirth. So number 1, pregnant woman, the most embodied. She's lever. She knows so much. Just listen to her. Number 2, massage that C-section area. Number 3, we haven't gotten there, and I know we have little time left, but as a woman ages, if I talk to one more woman that's been practicing primary series for 10 years, and because she can't stand up from a back bend, hasn't done any of intermediate, I'm going to pull all my hair out. This is really important. Strengthening postures. We don't get weaker. I'm so tired if I have to hear one more person say, well, you hit a certain point, then you have to start giving them back. That is bullshit. We want healthy, strong bodies. And you know what? There are a lot of postures. The Ashtanga yoga sequence, it's a beautiful toolbox that we have at our disposal. Why are we limiting ourselves? Intermediate series, there are so many. Back strengthening. We talked about legs. As a woman gets older, first of all, as you can tell, I am strong-willed. I am strong in a lot of ways, but there's no reason to just sometimes women after a certain age get written off. They get lost in the back of a room. And we talked a lot about rest, and rest is so, so important, but so is staying strong. So is staying healthy. You are not irrelevant after a certain age. And I don't know where this standing up from a back bend, that's legs, that's strength. You're not going to get stronger by staying another 2 decades in primary series. That's all.
Beautiful. I love it. Everyone else does too. The chat's blowing up. Helena.
Yeah, I'll be quick here. I think there's the standard recommendations of what a woman should do or should not do when they get pregnant, which we can advise our students, like avoiding the twists and not jumping and everything. But from my personal experience and also the series of interviews that I've done with a lot of Ashtangi practitioners, and people can check out on my Instagram, I've seen that there are numerous different experiences. People who has been practicing the whole pregnancy, didn't stop, some who stopped 3 months, some who have done back bends until with catching until the very last day, and they gave birth to very healthy babies, and everyone is fine. So there is a variety of experiences. And if you have done practice before, then you really need to trust your body, listen to your body, and know that your body has the knowledge to know what is the best thing for you to do. In my case, I have been practicing for 20 years before. I chose not to practice at all during my pregnancy because I thought I was complete. I was, in full blossom, and I didn't need anything else. I didn't need the practice at that moment. And that was the best thing I did. And my pregnancy was fine. I had no problems at all. I gave birth and everything was good. So, every experience can be a good experience, even to choose not to practice, because you don't feel like. So I just wanted to say that. And also, to choose to become a mother or not is also a very interesting topic, because I was afraid that having a baby could interfere and kind of diminish my spiritual development. I would have no time to practice. I would have no time to study. I would have no time to do pranayamas. And that is true. That is absolutely true. I don't have time, much less time than I had before. And the frustration of not having that disponibility is very strong, and I have to deal with this every day. But also what you learn and what you gain as a human being, it's also very spiritual. And then we can combine this profane or this mundane and this spiritual life and understand that everything is the same. And what I'm doing here is a spiritual practice as well. And this is why it's called the 7 series. And so I'm not doing asanas, but I am mothering a baby, and I am here putting into practice everything that I've learned in the last 20 years of practice.
Elena, you have a young child now. How have you started to rebuild your practice? How have you balanced those demands of having a baby and also then wanting to start practicing again?
Oh, in my particular case, it's not that easy because I don't have any support. I live away from my family. I live in Spain, and there's no one helping me. So I practice when I can, and it's normally when he's napping during the middle of the day when I can do my practice, and I do whatever I feel like. Most of the time it's the 2nd series, because the 2nd series gives me more strength and opening, and because I'm still breastfeeding, most of the time my chest is so closed, and I feel like I'm losing my spine, I'm losing my structure. So the 2nd series gives me that. I stopped doing 3rd. Sometimes I go into some postures just to get that fiery, that advanced feeling that you feel your bones and you feel like you're activating more. But I really do what I can do and what I feel like doing. And I'm really grateful, even if I can do just a few sun salutations. It's just, yeah, to reconnect, to find some silence, and to get back to being a better mother, you know?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Rebuilding it's a long-term endeavor, I think, the rebuilding of the practice. And I love that you're just again, being intuitive and doing what you feel you need. And one of the questions was also what are the effects of, long-term breastfeeding after the practice? Because as you say, it's your back gets so strong and your shoulders and everything. So maybe either somebody who would could maybe just mention something about how to reopen or how to keep that open. Did any of you have a particular experience with that? Yeah, Isa.
Yeah, well, I have that for the last months, now almost 2 years. Koa, the last is 20 months now. And of course, it is a challenge on a few poses to have bigger, and not only bigger, but also to feel sore, and which is demanding for the woman. But it's very, as I was saying, it is so special to just be there to listen for the breath, and detach ourselves from the shape of the asana, yoga asana practice. It is important to just listen more and more to what comes the way it comes. Of course, I could share tips. I'm using a lot the wall, less the free back bend style. For me was always very, it's my favorites, back bends and handstands and everything, but throughout pregnancies were very challenging to go back. I don't know if with respect of the baby, and I know other women did that, no problem, extreme back bends, and it's fine. It's very lovely to see. For me, was always I'm still recovering my back bends. Not because I have pain, nothing of that. It's just that I take it slowly. I took it slowly throughout the pregnancies and the postpartum also, but I use a lot the wall as that feeling when you breastfeed. Well, now after 3, I have my positions that I protect myself. I use on my 20s, I had so much more pain than now that I'm 40. So yes, we do become better and better. The women, it's like, it's so beautiful to age and to feel that aliveness that the practice also nurtures us beyond the yoga asana practice. Also from mothering, I definitely agree with that. We can't kind of beat ourselves. Oh, I didn't practice today. No, you did practice a lot. You are applying every little thing you did before. And for me, it was short because Arjuna came right after I started my practice. But you are constantly in yoga. It's not those hours. So rest on that, and every little time that you dedicate to yourself for self-care, it is the #1 priority practice for a woman. You need to love yourself the way you are. You are a goddess. If you give birth, if you don't give birth, it is like so amazing to be alive, breathing together. That is the gift. That is the gift. So take the time to find ways to listen to your intuition, this amazing intuition that guides you through, and nurture yourself the more you can, so you can nurture your babies if you have them, or nurture other babies like your students or anyone that you relate. Shine bright, shine bright. That is what we came for. We are to unfold that light from within that comes from this amazing Ashtanga practice that awakens that fire also. But I see Maria has a raised hand for quite a while. I pass her the word.
Perfect. I think that's also wonderful, like this idea of women in leadership and how we can be leaders to not just like our families, but to our students and to other people. And I know, Maria, you have your adopted children.
Yeah, I don't have biological children, but I do feel like I'm a mother anyway. I'm a woman, and I met so many students for so many years, and I've been teaching pregnant women. And to you, Adam, I can only say, listen to them, as so many others already have said, and just be like intuitive. There is something growing in there to create space. And Vanda Scaruelli says something like, do not kill the instinct of the body for the glory of the pose. This I carry with me when I teach, when I practice, and and also because I read some comments here that we mothers do yoga 24 hours a day. Yoga is a state of mind, and we all practice yoga 24 hours a day. So those hours on the mat is only a short time that we actually, that's a tool for us to live our lives and to teach and to meet other people and to be light in this world, to share light. Mothers or no mothers, we all have that possibility with the tool of the practice of this yoga, I think. So thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. That's so great. Adam?
Was I going to say something? Well, I think let's move on to like a true male patriarch. I'm going to say let's move on to our last topic and control the female form and the yoga and patriarchy. We're running over. I didn't really want to run over. Let's do 15 minutes more and just say, and I think Corey has some things to say on this. Let me just say, I think that current understanding of it is the female body is actually stronger than the male body. So the idea that women have a certain lack that they can't do the shapes as well as men, well, it's just simply that the shapes have been set up by men. in the way that they're strong. You know, in an all-round function, the female skeletal structure is actually stronger, I believe. So, you know, I think there's a lot, and that's just one kind of literal example of how there is this kind of masculine patriarchal thing controlling it. And I've also said things on the way that this kind of drive and pushing and linear approach I find rather masculine, and we can talk about these energies not necessarily being literally gender related, but just simply masculine and feminine, you know, if we want to talk in that way, and how there's a male energy that strongly drives this practice. And I think it, you know, can be destructive to men as well as women, you know, not only literally but also in terms of those two energies and trying to balance the masculine and feminine in practice. I feel it's obviously a very yang practice, and you know, and it definitely burnt me out as a man, for example. So let's turn it over to the forum for the last few minutes to wrap up. What do you think on that? And maybe we might address the question that Mariella brought up as well on male teachers, and the lines that might be drawn there between male and female teachers.
Corey, did you want to speak to this, please?
I actually feel that we've kind of covered this topic because, as you said, Adam, patriarchy has no gender. And Anna, you talk beautifully about this overlaying of conditioning and the ego mind and the striving. And this is the patriarchy, and this is what we are all conditioned in. And through the practice, we are, and not just through the practice, but in general, we are trying to uncondition ourselves. And we use the practice to, as we've spoken about, listen in, find our own wisdom, find our own way within this patriarchal structure, you know, and to depatronize, how would I say that? I have no idea. Let's use colonize, it's kind of the same thing. Decolonize our minds and find our own liberation through the practice. So I really feel that we've covered it a lot. In terms of the linear, I mean, I really love the structure of the practice, and I'm not really one for skipping things out and jumping ahead when someone isn't ready. I think it's, for me, the container was really, really valuable because I bounced up around it, and I was a very watery person, and I really needed that structure. However, today, as someone who has had the structure and has, you know, completed a few of the series, my practice is really circular, and there are days when I will come and I tend to do my advanced A over 3 days. I split it into parts. So I do all of my standing, and then I'll do the first chunk, then I'll do the second chunk, then I'll do the third chunk. And that, for me right now, with what is going on in my life right now, is really beautiful. And I think that the idea of that you have to come and do all of your practice every day, which again, we've spoken about, is one to throw out the window. You can, you know, do the practice, do what feels right on that day, whether it's half an hour, 2 hours. So I think that circular thing, bringing that's very feminine. It's very anti-patriarchy.
I love that. And it's interesting. Yeah, Anna, I maybe also you can speak to this, but like how students, you know, this is always a thing, is students come to these sort of forums and we give these like beautiful pieces of advice, like you don't have to do all of your practice, you can like do it in chunks, or you can, you know, even skip poses, and then they go and if they have a teacher, sometimes then they're like, but what do I do because my teacher won't let me, or I come up against that sort of structure, that system within the classroom if they're not just home practicing. So maybe somebody can talk to that. Maybe you want to speak to that, Anna. I know you're a teacher too. So.
Well, first of all, I actually think that everything that was said about working, being pregnant, and having a baby and practicing while being in this state is totally works for most of the time. I mean, pregnant or not, same ideas of being receptive and trusting your own wisdom, because this is yoga after all, well, as I see it. And I think that the best service that we can do as a teachers is to help our students to find a connection with their own wisdom, to find the connection with their own receptivity and openness and trust. And well, how do we do that? First of all, we do it with ourselves. And then, because otherwise we can't, if we're still trying to superimpose some artificial ideas on ourselves, then we do it for others too, because well, this is how it works. And then I mean, if a teacher is in this open and trusting state of mind, it just creates space where people intuitively find their way, and then we just don't interfere. I mean, we just step out of the way of this wisdom of like revealing itself. Of course we help and support and answer questions and so on, but we always keep this open space for everything to unfold and happen in its own way. And as Carrie said, everyone needs something different. So like someone who is like super soft and maybe like Carrie says watery needs a little bit more structure, and vice versa. And then we just like go with the flow of this particular human being and like help this flower to go into the full blossom. Something like that.
Thanks, Anna. Nia, and then Kathy.
Well, I was just thinking then it's maybe relevant to link back to where we started about cycles in terms of this discussion of patriarchy and this idea that there's a linear trajectory of improvement. And of course, we know that that's not how it works. We do go around in a circle, and that circle takes us deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And so for me, that little practice of just taking those 3 days or a couple of days off each month to do that sort of withdrawing in to then, like what Helena beautifully mentioned, that pulsating feeling. And it's not a case of losing anything. We're not going to lose anything by taking some rest and even, you know, not practicing during pregnancy or illness. We come back to the practice with that, there's a deepening, a maturity that happens. So for me, that personally, the idea of just following it on a monthly basis is a great way to, it's the analogy for life, isn't it? We follow those seasons through the life as well. So
Can I add something quickly? What Peggy mentioned about not giving the second series, you know, holding people so long into a series, and this conquering thing that is very masculine. You want to conquer the next posture, you want to conquer what comes next. And this is a very male characteristic. And so when we learn to absorb the practice and to allow the practice to flourish, not through conquering, you know, we develop a practice in a very different way, and it's much more connected to this feminine, whereas you just do what is helpful for you, what is healthy for your body, what makes you live longer and better. So there are some qualities of the practice that can be very masculine because of the method itself is structured as a first series, a second series, a third series. So I feel like I need to conquer, you know, I need to advance. So this is very masculine. And antidote for this, it's in the quality that we practice, and also us as teachers not being so dictatorial and authoritarian in the way we guide our students.
Kathy?
Yes, I love this conversation because I learned very differently than the way it's been taught for a long time. I learned all of first series once I knew the names and I knew the order. I started second series. And for 2 years, I did first series one day, second series the next, back and forth. I never overdid one. They balanced each other out. I opened in a way that felt great. And over the years, I've thought, wow, you can't do something, it's an obstacle. So it stops the whole process. It makes that pose mean too much. So as I get out there and have been teaching, I have to honor the way that supported me to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and to find the beauty of it. And it was not somebody I made the practice my own. I don't need anybody to tell me. And by that, I want to encourage, as I think it was Mia said, to make that connection within. And even to take it to another point, this has been very humbling for me as a woman, and I feel the need to add this. I was not drawn to study on all the outer text because I had such deep inner experiences of realization. I didn't want my mind to have this overlay. Now I enjoy doing that. But what happened for me was I discovered that I've got an insight out of the darkness. I've got an insight out of the unknown. It reveals itself. It's very different. And it doesn't exclude one, but if I had started studying earlier on, I would have been trying to live up. And to me, that's very patriarchal. So I just wanted to add that the journey itself has been very allowing, very opening. But if I had, just to say, for a few years, I was in a Mysore room, and I felt like the teachers, they were coming from another time. All I felt I got to be in the space and have maintenance. I didn't feel like I got to honor my practice. So I have loved really practicing more on my own as time has gone on because of that. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chandana.
So I've had only male teachers. I'm really happy with that. And I think the intention of this practice is very masculine, but the practice itself, which is all about movement and evolving yourself, is very feminine. So because we build up so much on our intuition, we know ourselves, we go inwards. I think the practice gives you what you need. Like there was a time when I needed to fire up, as Corey said, that it actually gave me the fire to make some of the most important decisions in my life. And then there was a time it actually softened me. So yeah, this practice is it's a balance. It's a balance. It's all about your intention for this practice is what matters. I think that is very important.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to bring something back to what Anna said about the way that we practice when we're pregnant. I remember I said this once to Peter Sanson, who was a man. I said, when you're pregnant, you really need to practice in a way that's nurturing your body and nurturing yourself. And he looked at me and said, shouldn't you practice that way all the time? And I was like, oh yeah, good one. So men do have wisdom. It's there, especially if they're in tune with themselves and life and the energy and the flow. So, but I think that was a really beautiful point, and so much collective wisdom from all of you beautiful, wonderful goddesses and ladies and women here. I'm so inspired by each and every one of you. And I just want to open it up if there's anything that somebody wants to say, if this brought up anything that you'd like to close with, please. Yes, Mariella, raise your hand, digitally or real, and we would just love to hear from you.
Well, the subject of women leadership, I think, is very important in these times of change. And women voices are coming out really strong. I have been working for the past year with women's circles. And this practice is such a way to unlock a lot of feelings, emotions, conditioning, and so much that we have inside. And coming together as women, for me, is such a pleasure just to know you and feel you and listen to you and learn from you. It's so healing just to be together. That's the healing. And Adam, I'm very happy you're here. You're holding the yang. And thank you for putting this together. And as a mother, as a professional, as a lawyer, I know our practice empowers us so our voices can come strong for many of us, but also for those who don't have voices. So I think this is a time of extreme solidarity between human beings. It's urgent, and if we can put our voice to service of something bigger, I think we're accomplishing our yoga. Thank you so much, everyone.
Before I leave it to Harmony to wrap up, I mean, I just want to say thanks to everyone for coming on and for sharing what you've shared. And, you know, as a man, and, you know, we know that, you know, proportionally there are a lot of male teachers out there to the whole, you know, male, female practitioners. I really appreciate hearing this, and I hope that it benefits other men as well in terms of how we go forward with this, with what we've got, you know. So, you know, thank you and for sharing and allowing me in your space as well. And thanks, Harmony. You've done a fantastic job. Really have. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Harmony. Thank you, everybody. Adam, thanks so much for hosting this and bringing this forward. This was really important, and I really appreciate it. Gosh.
And thank you to Teresa too, who is behind the scenes.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know if she's upstairs. Teresa.
The organizer extraordinaire.
Absolutely.
And she's very much involved.
Yeah, she really is. Yeah.
The great woman behind the man, I guess.
I don't think she'll make an appearance, but you never know.
And thank you to everyone who came. It was just, it's such a, like Mariella said, such a beautiful honor to be here with all of you and all of these amazing women. And I love hearing all of your experiences and perspectives. And I'm sure everyone else enjoyed it as well. I know they did, because they've been making so many comments. So
absolutely. And the recording will go out to everyone involved, and then we'll put it on our website and we'll link everyone to it so we can share it, etc. And if you haven't caught it or your students want to catch it, then it'll be on the website and you can share it from there. So thanks again, and thanks for your time, everyone in the audience. Fantastic participation, and to Harmony and to Teresa, my wife. I should have mentioned her before, didn't. And thanks everyone for your time. It's been a wonderful event, and I really appreciated hearing your experiences. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so
Bye,
much,
everyone.
Adam. You're doing
Thank
an
you so
amazing
much.
work.
Lovely.
Thank you so much.
Big kiss in your hearts.
thank you.